Telsi's away she's doing the reformer Pilates training for the next couple of weeks, so she's not here for this episode, but we kind of like just jump right into it. So today on the podcast, we've got Carly Eagles.
Hi.
And you are the founder, creator of a company called Sweet Simple Nutrition. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
and you're also, I think, like a yoga instructor, do a bit of personal training, and kind of like the full wellness sphere of different things, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. I don't do personal training, although I wish I did that.
Okay.
But I do teach yoga.
Cool.
I work one-on-one with nutrition clients. And I'm also just finishing up a program called Culinary Nutrition.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. Like I'm big into nutrition was something that really drew me in from like my early teens because I've always really liked food. And sometimes they're not, a lot of people treat them like they're not exactly the same, but you know, meshing them two together is something that I think will be fun to dive into today, because that's kind of where I think where your passion sort of lies most deeply. So anyway, just as like, I guess context or whatever, we actually went to high school together.
Yeah.
We never really knew each other back then. And so we clearly were in different groups or whatever. Have you always been into like nutrition? Or
honestly, like back in high school, not at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't very healthy, didn't play any sports, hated exercise, like basically the opposite of how I am now. It wasn't until about like first or second year of university when like I had so much stress and I just was like not very happy at the time, even though I did love university. But I started using fitness and like group fitness classes as just like my outlet. Mm-hmm. And then that sort of shifted. As soon as I started working out, I was like, oh, eating well makes me feel good too. And it just kind of like continued from there. Cool.
Yeah. That's I'd say very similar to like my backstory with being interested in nutrition. It started a bit earlier because I played basketball for PC and like just kind of started from being in like coming out of like elementary school, being overweight and needing to lose weight to like play better and you know, have more endurance and everything, and finding that nutrition was like the big factor for me as well. Were you in the like the arts program? Or
I wasn't in the arts program, but like I was kind of a wannabe.
Oh, okay.
Like I did hang out. I was a bit salty about that, actually.
Were you?
Yeah. But I did hang out with a lot of people in the arts program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why like we were in like totally opposite circles in the school, because the arts program was quite like, I don't know, like close knit sort of like group that I was not a part of, because I was way more like a sciencey and had like zero creativity kind of thing.
I always called myself a floater. Like I had friends from every group kind of. I had like my core friends, but I just sort of like floated around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of still the same. I seem to make friends with like lots of different people, and I kind of love that.
Yeah, no, that's like a great like attribute to have for sure. So then, you get into nutrition and everything. And how did that, like, what's the sort of the journey that led you to wanting to like be your own boss kind of thing, like doing it sort of taking that kind of leap?
It's been a very long process. So after university, I ended up taking the precision nutrition course. I guess part of the backstory too is that like I've always had digestive issues.
Okay.
Like struggled with them since I was a kid. So that was always like a little bit of my interest was kind of like, how can I help myself? But yeah, I took the precision nutrition course, which is actually a really good course. It's online. Did you do that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like a good starting point, but I still didn't feel confident enough to really coach people. Mm-hmm. So for a few years, I kind of had been thinking about holistic nutrition. I liked that it was a bit longer program, in person. But it wasn't really something that like I was working for the government I was like had a good full-time job. Wasn't like totally on my radar to do.
Oh, okay.
Then I guess like maybe 3 years ago, my dad passed away. He'd been sick for a long time. But the stress of that, and like especially near the end, I got even more sick. Like my stomach was totally messed up, and so I had to kind of go back to basics again with myself and like heal myself. And that was also when I kind of was like, you know what, life's pretty short. Well, you know, however you want to look at that in a positive light, but like it's important to do what you're passionate about. And like that was something my dad really like talked to me a lot about, was like following your dreams. And we had even talked about me going to nutrition school, and he was kind of saying, you know, I hope that you do it.
Yeah.
So about like a year after that, I like in 2017 went back to school. I went to the Institute of Holistic Nutrition in Ottawa. And yeah, so it was a 1 year, like 12-month program. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
It was a lot of information for just 1 year. As I'm sure you know, like studying nutrition, there's just so much information. Yeah, like you could study any subtopic of nutrition for years.
Totally.
So that was really great. And after I graduated that, I have moved back to Peterborough and launched my business officially last December. So it's been about a year.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
It's been such a good experience so far, like such a good learning experience.
Yeah, and there's also, I'm sure, I think you're in sort of the same like boat that I am with, like there's a lot of support in Peterborough too for small businesses. And are you're with Community Futures as well? Or?
I did some stuff with Peterborough Economic Development.
Gotcha. Yeah, so they're all kind of under the
same kind of umbrella. Yeah. I did the Starter Company Plus program, and somebody actually happened to tell me about it. Everything has kind of just like nicely fell into place. Yeah. Someone told me about it like in September of last year when I had just moved back home. So I applied for the program, and I believe it was in October, November. So that program, they help you to build a business plan, and then kind of like compete for a grant for your business. Yeah. So 7 of the, I think 14 of us got grants.
Cool.
And I was lucky enough to get one of the 2 top grants. So that was
nice.
That was like a big encouragement too.
Sure.
And I actually used a portion of that grant to pay for my school that I'm in right now for culinary nutrition.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's like you're right. It's going on right now because Jordan and Sean, who are from New Foss Media, they were on a couple months ago, and they are. I think it's actually this Thursday is the you do a little like sort of like fair sort of thing where you present
like a little trade show.
Yeah, a little trade show for each business, and I think that's this week. So yeah, that's
cool.
Essentially coming full circle that from a year ago is how it's going right now.
Yeah, it's a great program.
Cool. Yeah. For anybody that's kind of looking to get started, obviously like. The ambition of something like Flow Spa is a little out of that scale, and I didn't know about like the Starter Company program because I was more so launched right into like Community Futures, which is more of like a larger size like loan instead of a grant. But yeah, anybody getting started with like those smaller kind of steps, that's where I always like encourage people to start. Is look what, even if you're not in the Peterborough area, like. Look at what's available in your town, maybe provincial, like whether you're doing like an online business or something like more local, you're probably going to be able to find something. Of course, when you get to sort of like the large, you go from Peterborough to like provincial to federal, it's going to be like a lot more competition, but that's always like a good learning experience anyway.
For sure. Like I had went into it without really any intention to get a grant. Like, and I think maybe that's why I did well too, because I wasn't there for the money.
Sure.
I was there just to learn and to understand a bit more about what it takes to run a business. So yeah, being open to that experience, and anything else is just a bonus.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like essential. And then I think it also touches on the other aspect of that, which is it is something that you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it's definitely something that we talk a lot about here and on the podcast, because without that passion, if you're just after the money, like, it's something you could do. I mean, it's okay in one sense, but you have to really know that that's what you're for. And it's not for me.
Yeah.
I usually like kind of like preface that, but I think for some people, yeah, maybe that is their like primary driver, and it could work, I guess.
Yeah, it could work, like, depending on the business.
Yeah.
I think in a business, especially when it's like for yourself and when it's in kind of the wellness / like, you know, people are shelling out money to be helped in some way. I kind of say similar to your business too, is like, you can feel someone's like authenticity. At least I feel like I can.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of like doing it for the money or not, when you start a business, like, you're really not making any money.
Yeah.
So which I've kind of learned, and like, yeah, if you don't like what you're doing, then it's going to make sticking it out a whole lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of have to find that joy in it. There's going to be like, obviously, times that aren't so fun. You
Sure.
know, I always kind of pictured my business, like, all the glamorous parts of it before I started it. So like, you know, meeting with clients and giving presentations, but behind the scenes is where 90% of the work happens, and it's not as glamorous, but
yeah, that's it's so true. And I think like something just that kind of goes through my mind a lot that I hope is words of encouragement for a lot of people is over time you develop, like, some people call it like a thicker skin. I like the term grit a lot. There's different, like, I just recently learned that there's different types of grit. It's not all just about like the like perseverance type, but there's going to be those hard things, and over time you actually, like, you kind of just like jump right into them instead of it, like, you know, smacking you in the face and throwing you off kilter. It's just something that comes with practice, like anything else. I think that you kind of just like, oh, it's just another like obstacle that you go through, kind of thing.
definitely, it really like builds resilience.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something like that yesterday that was kind of similar to that. It's just that sometimes as an entrepreneur, especially like by yourself, I don't know, what do you call that?
Some people call it like the solopreneur.
Yeah, solopreneur.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot
doing it without like a partner. Or like
There's a lot of fear. Like, I was thinking about that yesterday, that like almost every day there's something I'm doing that scares me.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrifying. And it's kind of like that. It's building that resilience, because like every time it's maybe a little bit less scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That's what it's all about. It's the same thing with you know, doing a podcast or putting it out as a video. Which are very valuable tools for somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur. I don't think it's the be all end all. You could be like a really great writer. It's just knowing where people's attention is. It's kind of something that you have to be like amazing, like, you know, one of the best in the world at it to get attention. Like I don't follow a whole lot, like every single person on social media, but, you know, Mark Manson is probably like one of the top bloggers in the world. Or another example that I know a little more closely is Seth Godin, and he writes a daily blog, and I talk about him a lot on the podcast because he's got like more of I don't know, like ethical sort of approach to marketing, I would say. Maybe not ethical, not the right word, not like in your face. He's more about just really dialing into who your target market is and what's the minimal viable audience for whatever your product or service is. And he's comfortable in front of video and stuff, and he does a podcast now, but it's like he does a daily blog that I think reaches millions of people a day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but really challenging to like kind of have the blog as like the central thing these days. It worked more 5 or 7 years ago, probably. But
Yeah.
now I think you need to train up some of that resilience to face, the camera or the microphone.
So true.
Where people are paying a little more attention.
Yeah. I've been so bad at like, I tried to do some Instagram videos once in a while. I'm just extremely awkward in front of the camera. And my family will be the first ones to tell me the truth.
Oh.
They're like, why are you acting like this?
It's really
like, you're so funny when you're not trying.
Yeah.
Like if there could be someone maybe just following me around, like I'd love to have a reality TV show.
Cool.
To capture
yeah.
those funny moments.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I feel the same way still, so I don't really have the right answer, but like the more practice or whatever, the easier it becomes. Also, just not trying to force it so much. Yeah. Or maybe for, in some cases it's planning it out well in advance, right? Are you more introverted or extroverted?
I would say I'm more introverted. Like I'm a very social introvert.
Yeah.
But I love to be alone.
So it's essentially like how you recharge your batteries, whether it's with people or without people, is kind of the core aspect of what that even means. And we had an episode a little while ago about it because Telsi and I are both, strong introverts, but I think the social part is more no longer being as shy, right? It's like shyness is not the same thing as introversion, and that's something that like you overcome,
right?
As you sort of like eliminate that fear of interpersonal interaction kind of thing. But essentially, like the point I was thinking with this is I feel like for extroverts can just get on the camera or whatever and kind of talk through their day or whatever. I think that planning ahead or maybe being a little more deliberate is kind of the key for like introverts that are running their own businesses or trying to make a presence for themselves on social media of any sort, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, as the two like main ones. So that's something that like I think about because I also like I don't really watch Instagram stories, so it's not even something that I do a whole lot of because it's sort of just not for me.
Right.
I think I don't know. I know that a lot of people do pay a whole lot of attention to it, but I'm also kind of on the like I'm definitely a proponent of sort of that finding balance and that digital minimalism kind of aspect.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on social media, and I don't really I want to sort of like do my job in marketing through social media because that's super important for a small business, but also not contributing to like overwhelming people. Right.
Yeah. That's so true. Mm-hmm. I try to do the same. I don't want to be posting things all day long.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone should be unless that's really like what their passion is. Because maybe it is. But it takes away from real life. That's my struggle with it. Mm-hmm. Like I do take a lot of food pictures, which everyone I know probably thinks is so annoying. But I mean, I am a nutritionist.
Yeah.
So food pictures actually are pretty relevant for me.
Totally.
But I think there's like a fine line. And I try not to bombard people with like sales pitches on my social media, just because it gets, like you said, it gets exhausting.
Yeah. It's a good strategy. I mean, like Gary Vaynerchuk kind of refers to it as like the jab, 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 right hook, where mostly you're just giving, you're creating beautiful food pictures, you're putting out that kind of content. And I don't know, I love food pictures on Instagram.
I do too. Yeah.
So it's definitely like appealing to, the crowd that you're trying to reach. And then like, there's nothing wrong if you're giving out all this like great content to ask every once in a while. But if you start to be like pushy or too much on the like the salesy end of it, then it really takes away from it. That's essentially like what marketing is not, right?
Right.
That's like pure sales that we saw in, I don't know, like the early 1900s or what, like a really like antiquated sort of style of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. kind of like going into more of the nutrition side of it, something that kind of came to mind, because I did the precision nutrition as well, and I'm kind of curious your take on, their PN's sort of approach is very like John Berardi refers to it as diet agnostic, where you don't really like necessarily like prescribe or subscribe to any one particular diet. And then on the other side, like what's the, like sometimes like when people think of like holistic nutrition, it maybe is a little more dialed into one sort of aspect, or I don't know, because I haven't like studied holistic nutrition particularly, so I'm not sure. Where do you sort of land on that spectrum of like maybe science versus things that are working for clients, but maybe less like rigid in nutritional science per se?
That's a good question. So I'll touch on the John Berardi stuff first, the precision nutrition. I like the stuff they put out. Mm-hmm. It's like very science-based. It makes a lot of sense. I still pull pieces of it actually. Yeah. Especially for clients who are just figuring out like how to eat healthy. He has like some good plates that he has. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of like the simplicity of some of it, I really like it and still use it. Yeah. It ties in well with holistic nutrition. I mean, I also don't subscribe to any specific type of like diet. I get asked that a lot. Mm-hmm. For some reason, everyone thinks I'm a vegan. Like every person I meet. Yeah. Maybe because I'm a yoga teacher too.
It's kind of the fad right now, right? Yeah. I'm sure since you've been in it for a while now too, you see like, a couple 2 years ago or so it was keto for everybody. Yeah. And now we've really like hit into the plant-based.
Yeah, those two both still seem to be pretty hot.
They are, yeah.
I don't subscribe to any of them personally, at least not right now. But yeah, the holistic nutrition component kind of pulls in, so it takes the nutrition piece, but also looks really more at like the whole body. Okay. So as opposed to just looking at nutrition, which is kind of more about what precision nutrition's about. Yeah. I mean, they do talk a lot about fitness as well, though. Sure. Because it's kind of like targeted toward a lot of athletes too, the precision nutrition, I would say. But yeah, we look kind of at the whole body. So like not only what the person's eating, but what they're doing for movement, how they're thinking, like what's going on with their mental health too. Yeah. And the purpose of it is to really look for a root cause, and then to use foods and other lifestyle recommendations to sort of support that root cause. I don't think we're supposed to use the word heal. Yeah. But yeah, to support whatever that root cause is. So nutrition is a big component of that, obviously, as a nutritionist. But I will give people lifestyle recommendations, sometimes even supplementation. Mm-hmm. And it is pretty individualized, depending what each person's dealing with. Cool. Yeah. Although when it comes down to it, the fundamentals of a healthy diet are always kind of the same.
That's right. They're always they're always rooted in that scientific perspective, and I think it's good to hear that, because I think that some people there's definitely a lot of, whether you like gurus or people that just have like these radically different opinions that kind of get off course from that, for sure.
Yeah. For me, it's about like the individual feeling their best, and recognizing like that individuals are all different too. So my perfect diet might not work for someone else. Yeah. And working with that, I also talk a lot about like mindfulness in terms of eating. I do a lot of like intuitive eating personally. Yeah. So I really try to listen to like what my body, I'm sure Telsi has talked about this before too. But yeah, like actually listening to what my body is wanting and craving, and then trying to understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's like it's definitely something that benefits from like a lot of coaching for somebody that's new to it, I would say, because it's challenging. it does, like you said, take in the whole, like the holistic approach, because I can't remember who I heard talking about this recently. It might have been on like one of Paul Chek's podcasts, but like kind of like distinguishing between what the brain wants as far as food goes, or like, you know, what your palate is looking for, versus he was like talking about like what your soul wants. And, you know, that kind of reaches into a little more of the spiritual aspect. And Paul Chek is very like, he's a little more out there, not quite. Sometimes like things, I've caught things that, like, you know, he references pretty bad science sometimes, but he's really well grounded. So there's something unique and interesting to pay attention to there anyway. But that takes a lot of coaching to figure out whether it's like, you know, an intense craving, say, for sugar doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you actually need, kind of thing. Sometimes it's, I think a good example is when you like eat a whole bag of potato chips and you're still hungry afterwards. It's because you haven't actually nourished yourself with what your body was craving in the first place. And you've sort of not even put a Band-Aid on it. It's just like it's so empty as far as nutrients go. And that's where it kind of ties back into the science of it, because it's a lot of it is around, you know, nutrient density is really important for satiation and feeling that actual sense of fullness.
Yes, totally. And I think that's why we get stuck in these, like when we're not eating well, we can get stuck in these loops of continuing to eat not so well.
Yeah.
Because our body is desperate. And also once you get a taste, I mean, no one's going to deny that like chips don't taste good.
Yeah.
Where was I going to go with that? I remember what I was going to talk about.
Cool. Yeah.
So the idea that I've read a lot and seen a lot of things from some nutritionists that are all kind of like, you know, calories in versus calories out. That's kind of the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And that whether your calories come from like a healthy food or an unhealthy food doesn't matter if in the grand scheme, which sure, you can say that like calories in and calories out, that is how the body works. Mm-hmm. But touching on like the nourishing foods and the nutrient dense foods, the way that calories like act in our body is different. So you like they aren't the same.
Right.
Like 200 calories of chips versus 200 calories of like nutrient dense vegetables and protein are going to react in your body in two really different ways.
Yeah, totally.
So I've been like thinking a lot about that too when I kind of work with clients, and also in my nutrition program right now. Just this idea that, you know, sure, like you can use the math and you can count your calories if that's what works for you, but ultimately, if you want to nourish your body, if you're eating for health, these calories are behaving in really different ways, and the way they're going to serve your health long term is also really different.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and yeah, that's something that it takes like quite a bit of time to appreciate too if you're just getting started with it. It's so hard to like unpack that even like the addictions that we build up, or that almost dependency to processed foods, you know, it messes up our gut health. And then, you know, there's research showing how the bad bacteria in our microbiome is actually influencing our neurochemicals and increasing those cravings for those processed foods. And it can be like a tough challenge. That's where I like that the precision nutrition approach is all about like they're really deep into the change psychology and developing, you know, behavior goals instead of obsessing over outcome goals.
Yes.
And really like breaking it down to the smallest achievable things is huge with precision nutrition. And so I'm pretty sure that anybody that signs up directly with them as like a client, I mean, we did it from like the coaching aspect, it's I believe it's like a full year,
Okay,
because
yeah.
when you're working with like a coach, and I think I don't know, maybe it's a little bit different with your individual practice. We can get into that, but making like the smallest change that you know a customer or a client's gonna stick to on even on like a 2-week basis is really important, because you can buy like if you're going in for like if you're preparing for like a physique show, you're gonna need to buy that full meal plan that may be radically different from what you're currently doing, and you're going to need to stick to it 100% in order to look good on stage. But that's we know it's not sustainable, right? It's like a temporary thing for one of those outcome goals, really. But that's not like, I'm sure the holistic nutrition, precision nutrition, it's all about more of, people don't always like the word, but the lifestyle change.
It is,
you know?
yeah.
So I forget what I was kind of leading towards with that question, and is that sort of, actually, is that how you approach it still, or is that how like the holistic kind of practice approaches it? Is there like the smallest kind of possible change at time?
I would say I do try to get clients to take kind of little steps. I do like that precision nutrition does that.
Yeah.
And I try to get my clients, like, we go over so much in our first visit usually. But then I try to break that down into like a couple of achievable kind of goals for that next period of time.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you try to overhaul everything at once, it doesn't usually go super well. I usually ask them too. Like, I'm not the one who should be creating these goals or these habits. What 2 things do you think are achievable for the next month that you could work on? And usually it's really simple things too, like drinking more water.
Yeah.
And like eating some more vegetables, like really easy things like that.
For sure.
Or like, for some of my other clients, maybe it's like, okay, like have like 1 less glass of wine a night.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily life altering. There's definitely other nutritionists who I would say are more strict.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And if you're dealing with like an acute disease or a problem, sometimes you do need to be more strict, but we're all human too. So I think even in those cases, like being gentle in terms of adapting slowly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's probably the type of clients I get, is clients that want to move a bit slower in terms of like taking their time to really like make it a lifestyle.
Sure.
Like you said.
Yeah.
I'm not the person who's like phoning them at like 9:00 at night being like, don't eat that cake.
Yeah.
I'd probably say to them like, have the cake if you want to, or have a piece of it.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, like, get back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always, I think that it's something that John Berardi's talked about too with precision nutrition, that I've always kind of liked, is the, if you're 90%, I think if 90% of the way to a perfect diet, then that's going to get you the results still.
Totally.
So when then if you're eating, usually, even if it's the 3 square meals a day, with 21 a week, that still gives you room for like 2 sort of meals not being perfect.
Yeah.
2 or 3 can still be the piece of cake or something. And then I know that as you kind of go along and you learn this, there are instances where you would kind of check off like 2 of those if it's like a Chinese food buffet,
right,
or like going for all you can eat sushi. That's usually like based on the calorie load and everything. It's more than 1 of those squares of your sort of less than ideal diet for the week.
Right. Yeah. I try to like get people away from like food guilt too.
Yeah.
Because like you, like I really like nutrition because I really like food. But I do think that when there's too much guilt associated with something, that's when people give up. So yeah,
Yeah.
for someone who's just starting, maybe their good meals are 50% of the time. And that's still better than maybe when before they were 5% of the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And trying to just like encourage people that it's not the end of the world if you eat that cake or that pizza.
Yeah. It's the same thing that I think about a lot with business or starting a business or running a business, anything to do around that. It's the exact same thing is getting rid of that guilt for maybe not checking off or even just like those like people that are super type A driven to accomplish stuff, trying to like perfection's not the goal. And the more that you forgive yourself for not doing things perfectly, the more you end up getting done.
That's so true.
Right?
Because I think I've done it too, where I've kind of waited. It's like, well, it's not ready. It's not perfect. Like, I can't share this with the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never going to be perfect, or you're going to be waiting forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so. That's I like that because it's the same principle across the board for accomplishing cool stuff in your life in any aspect. So actually I'm curious about the culinary nutrition program and how, like, is it almost like becoming more of a chef, or what sort of does it look like? Is it I can't even, I've never heard of it before, and I just can't really wrap my head around how it works or what it's.
So yeah, it's very cool. That's a good word I like to use. Super cool.
Yeah.
Basically what I like about it and what it is. So I did the holistic nutrition course, and the person who actually made this culinary nutrition program was a graduate from that course as well.
Oh, cool.
And the course was amazing, and we talk a lot about nutrition and food, but not a lot about the execution. So we learn what foods we should be telling people to eat or what to eat, and how to help all these different conditions. But the actual, there's a piece missing, which is the fact that a lot of people don't know how to prepare their food, or don't know what to eat, how to make it. So it sort of fills that gap. So in the course, there's been a lot of cooking involved. I will say, like, my culinary skills have improved greatly. I'm definitely not a chef.
Sure.
But like, I can now confidently like make things that maybe before I just didn't know how to make. And
cool.
That was kind of a weird gap for me, because I was like, I'm a nutritionist. Why don't I know how to make these things? But it just wasn't a big component of the school. Yeah. So it also, like, we talked a lot about, or we learned a lot about different conditions as well, and how to support those conditions through diet, and actually designing specific meals and specific recipes. So we've done a lot of recipe creation as well, using ingredients that help to heal. So for instance, if I wanted to make a smoothie that was like anti-inflammatory, I might be thinking to add things like turmeric and ginger. I like to add probiotics, which also help with like inflammation in the gut, support the brain health as well. So it's kind of like being a chemist in your kitchen. Yeah. But with like this intention of healing maybe for specific things or supporting specific conditions. So it's a lot about recipe creation, and also about teaching other people how to cook too. So that's something that in the new year I'm really excited to start launching. Nice. In Peterborough here.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. And that's great. Yeah, I think that's when you're, I mean, sometimes when you're in it, right? Like, we sometimes forget these things that seem so basic to us, and even like you said, you've been shocked at how much you've been able to kind of like expand your skills in the kitchen. I don't know, it definitely like is something I forget a lot, that a lot of people have no clue how to put together meals or anything like that, and just that kind of getting back to basic step can be really, really helpful and valuable for
the clients that are struggling maybe in so many different ways with nutrition. Are you going to be or do you have anything planned to sort of like expand upon your online offerings, or do you do much like online coaching, or
not
is
a
it
whole
mostly in
lot?
person
Like I
right
would
now?
like to, but a lot of it is in person right now. I think it would be awesome to do some like culinary videos at some point as well.
Yeah, totally.
But I'll probably start mostly in person to begin.
Cool.
I haven't decided on my location for that yet.
Yeah.
It may just be like a small group setting in my kitchen for a bit. That's where my home office is anyway, is at my house. So yeah, I think the basics are so important. And it even goes beyond that though, because people can, when I'm kind of telling people as I'm walking them through these cooking workshops, you get to learn a lot about the health benefits of these different foods. Like, so the why behind why am I adding this ingredient into what we're making? Because it's more than just because it tastes good. That's just like an added bonus.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think so. Something that obviously I've started to less and less ask this question or kind of dive into it, because the whole like central theme of the FlowCast is to even just express that like flow state through the conversation in a lot of ways, because I find that's what ends up happening anyway. But something that I do like to kind of go back to a lot is, have you experienced or what in sort of your life kind of triggers that deep sort of focus flow state for you? And so just kind of like touching on it a little bit more, usually it's things like you lose track of time, and it's kind of that borderline between where you're pushing yourself to like the limit of your skill without going overboard and without like kind of that boredom of things being too easy. What sort of things kind of trigger that for you?
I think a big thing for me, which is so funny because I always was really shy growing up, is like presenting, talking to big groups. I actually, like, I used to be a singer, and it was kind of the same thing. Like, I'd be so nervous before, but once I would start, like, get up on the stage and start singing, it's like, like time kind of disappears.
Yeah.
And I found that when I started to do some big workshops and presentations, I get kind of that same feeling. Yeah. Where it's like, I'm just kind of, I am like in my flow, and I'm able to like give this information to people and feel them receiving it. What else? Like, I guess I feel that as well when I'm teaching yoga. So kind of another like almost like a performing thing as well.
Yeah. I think performance is one of those aspects that kind of triggers flow quite a bit. And I can definitely relate with like the presentation aspect. More so, it's a tricky one, right? Because when you start out, it's probably less that, because you're just so, especially being introverted, usually starts with like that shyness aspect too. And you kind of, I guess like looking at the scale of anxiety is too high, right? So you can't actually like be in that flow state and really get, into that awesome presentation mode. But as you practice, it becomes easier and easier to do that. And I think part of it is like, there's a perceived risk with that, which is we want to perform really well so that we don't look foolish. And unfortunately, that's like just part of what's kind of baked into, you get rid of it too, but it's kind of baked into our society. That kind of like fear of that performance anxiety comes from a lot of fear of like, looking silly or whatever. And I think maybe even with the yoga aspect too sometimes, right? Because it's you're of course performing, you're doing like the movements alongside everybody, but you also want to present yourself as kind of that not perfect, but the authority figure in the scene.
Yeah, it's like definitely an interesting dynamic in a yoga class where
Totally.
you want to be assertive while still making sure that you're like being very like mindful and present.
Yeah.
Which I find like comes pretty naturally once I started doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it is very similar sensation to like presenting in front of a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just working with clients, like when I do the one-on-one stuff, I, especially when I talk to a client after a few weeks and, you know, they're doing so well, I feel like that it not only is like being in my flow in terms of like, I enjoy the work that I'm doing, but it kind of like allows me to continue to move forward and continue to like want to help others by seeing sort of that, like, hey, this is working.
Yeah.
I'm not just I'm not just making this up. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think something for me that I struggled with when it came to like the one-on-one nutrition coaching is I'm just so fascinated by the science of it that I could ramble on for an hour about, you know, how like eating different foods affects like our glycemic load, or, you know, just like things that I would it's something that I that took a lot of like correcting in myself and learning, but I definitely like could identify being like deep in like a flow state, talking about something that I was really interested in with somebody that, you know, was working with me. So yeah, those are definitely
I also like in terms of the flow state just in life and business, I find for me, like I've had some moments lately where it just feels as though like everything is happening kind of in the exact right time. Like it feels in flow, and I can tell when I'm in that flow state, if you will, because it's like, oh, like this just happened, and it's like this synchronicity where it's like, this is definitely happening because I've positioned myself here.
Yeah.
It's like affirmation that you're on the right track.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of it's something that it's good to hear. Like I experience a lot of that too, and that's what the central mission of this podcast is all about, is helping people to kind of actualize that for themselves. And I don't know, yeah, that's why we like to share these stories, really, is because it's achievable. Sometimes it's something that you can't completely like break apart, but the more that we know about flow and the different ways to kind of get into the flow state and like the triggers for it, is something that you can like work towards improving upon as well.
Definitely. And it's not all the time. Like,
no, of course.
There's definitely so many moments where you don't feel in your flow.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool to have the moments where you do, and where you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I can definitely feel when things are out of balance, or things that aren't in alignment with what my goals are.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much those can derail you. But it's also cool to be able to recognize that and be like, okay, this needs to not be part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. It's and it just takes practice.
Yeah, exactly.
It just takes practice and time and building up experience with that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about or mention? Where can people find you for, if they want to, you know, follow you on? I think you do quite a bit on Instagram still, and
yeah, my Instagram handle is @sweetsimplenutrition. So that's where I post most stuff. I do have a Facebook page. I think it's the same handle.
Sure.
I think. I don't post there very often.
Yeah.
And you can check out my website if you want, sweetsimplenutrition.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
And look for you doing more like culinary work in the new year.
Yeah. I'm excited to like start to get some of that off the ground. So stay tuned. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a really nice
welcome.
chat.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I'm always like happy to have people come back when they've got, new updates and whatever. But yeah, I think that we covered a lot today as far as the nutrition thing. I guess one like kind of quick thing, is there anything that's sort of your go-to nutrition recommendation for
for everybody?
Like, what's the thing that most people are screwing up with, that, or maybe not screwing up with, but could do a little bit better job that we can kind of leave people with?
Honestly, I think everyone just needs to eat a bit more vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the number one thing.
Yeah, that pretty much, I definitely agree. I think that's sort of like the precision nutrition seems to be like the start point for a lot of people, and like most sensible nutrition strategies too. So.
Yeah, on any diet, but like leafy greens. Eat your leafy greens.
Yeah, you can't go.
We all need them.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks, Carly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.